Everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to understand simple storage service, which is one of highest used services of AWS for the storage of files, images, etc., backups, archivals. So for everything we use S3, which is simple storage service. So what are the features of it? We'll try to understand that. So first of all, what I will explain is basically what Amazon has done is, or AWS has done is basically it provides three different types of storage services. So one is the block storage, which is basically the service for that is EBS, Elastic Block Service. So block storage, you could say that what how we store in hard disk, right? The data that we store in hard disk, which in the similar structure that you would be storing in the EBS. So it's like a hard disk attached to the computer. So you just assume that EC2 instance is your computer, and then you attach a volume, or a hard disk. So that is your EBS. So the main storage is using the block. Okay? And then there is a file storage, which is EFS, Elastic File Service. And this is basically for the like a shared network, right? Okay. You might have a shared network drive that you normally see, right? There are multiple uh, machines which are actually accessing that particular shared network drive. So that is what EFS does. So it's a file storage service, and it's a shared network drive. So that's what EFS does. Now the third one is the object storage. So this is like this. Uh, it's not a pure way that we store in files or the block, right? Where we have this hierarchical structure, and this hierarchical structure is not that present in the object storage. Object storage is stored differently. Every file, every image, etc., is stored as an object, and then you actually access it over the internet using the API. So it uses the API, the REST call, and using which you actually get the data. So that's the three different kinds of storage services that AWS storage. And for object storage, obviously S3, simple storage service, is being basically that's the way S3 stores its data using the object storage. Now, what is an object storage? Let's understand more. Okay. So, what is an object storage? Object storage, see, it stores data as object. That's it. If you understand this, so you will have three parts to it. One is data, which is, well, it could be an image, it could be a PDF file, it could be a video file, it could be an XLS data, it could be anything. So that would be your data part. Then you have this metadata. Metadata is like information about the object. Okay? Like what is the key, what is the other information, like what would be the size, permissions, etc. So all these things are your metadata. So that is your one object. And then each and every object is having one unique identifier. You could say a key, right? So this key basically separates one object from the other object. So this key, you could say, it's uh, like a so this key is basically a pointer kind of thing, you could say, and it holds this node of the object. You could just, I mean, just an analogy. You could think like that. So it's like a key, and then we have data and metadata, and that is your one object. Okay, so and this is your object structure. If you look at this object structure, you have this bucket company document. Okay, so bucket, when I say there is the concept of bucket in AWS S3, we will come to that. And then inside bucket you have different objects. So like what would be my object structure? Now we have one key. When I say key, it's like the complete path, invoices slash 2026 slash July slash INV 001 the PDF. This is my key. Okay, this would be unique basically. And then inside the bucket, and then there is data, which is the actual data, which is this ID. And then we have the content or the metadata. What is the content type, when it was created, etc. You will have the tags data as well. So those kind of all information, this will be your object. And this object, basically it lies inside the one of the bucket. So we look at the bucket. So this, if you look here in the bucket example, this is like I told you, right? There is no hierarchical structure. It's a flat namespace here. Like everything is like under one, uh, you could say hierarchy. So bucket, images, videos, etc. Now these are different actual objects, right? But then they are at the same level, but then how they are differentiated using this key. So that's the flat namespace that we see. Now, again, we'll just understand why S3 is different from file and block storage. The in object storage, data unit is object. In the file storage, it is file, and in block it's block. So we have just understood that part. And as far as the structure is concerned, it's flat namespace folder hierarchy, and this is the raw block. And how do we access it? Now this block storage is mounted as a disk. We all know, right? You can mount this as a disk. And now this file storage is basically the network file system, or it could be a server block, server machine. This is the network file system. And then as far as scalability is concerned, see what the main advantage of object storage is virtually unlimited. It is virtually unlimited. We keep on adding objects, we keep on adding objects. That's what the kind of scalability it provides. Basically, what this S3 provides. As far as EFS or EBS is concerned, right? It is not, uh, you could say unlimited. Yeah, but EFS provides a very huge amount of uh, storage basically. But S3 is like virtually unlimited. And EBS is limited by volume. You might have 8 GB disk, you might have 6 GB, something. And performance is good. And performance wise, block storage is excellent because it is very close to instance. Obviously, for your read and write operations, like for your database and all those stuff, right? You would obviously use EBS, and then uh, file storage in EFS, it is good. Obviously, if it is over the network, right, there will be some kind of latency that you will be seeing. And as far as S3 is also concerned, it is very good for large objects. So, like we can see, right, the latency is higher in S3. It is medium in the EFS and lowest in the EBS. And what is the shared access? Yeah, via the bucket, or you could use the IAM policy, etc. And then for EFS, right, like we can uh, connect it to the multiple instances. So that's your EFS. So it can be used on multiple clients or computers. Then this EBS is basically generally it is only one instance. Only some of the other types based on the instance type, etc. It depends. You can have multi-instance, but then you can just consider it as single instance only for now. And then as far as metadata is concerned, the because it is an object, right? So you can have a very rich metadata. A lot of information about the object can be stored here. So that is the advantage. And as far as the file properties are concerned in the EFS or the network file system, it is very basic information that you will get. And in the block storage, it's very minimal. And then we have this application, like I told you, the block storage or EBS is used for database storage classes. And then EFS would be your shared files, your content, etc. And then S3 is best for the images, videos, big data needs. All these things will come in your S3. Now coming to the global infrastructure, where does S3 lie, right? S3 is region specific, just keep that in mind. Okay? So AWS infrastructure across the world, okay, it has multiple regions, and your S3 basically it would be in one of the regions. Okay, so every region will have it will have a separate S3. Okay, and then it's a regional resource. You could just understand in that way. And what happens basically, this regional resource S3 data, uh, it is basically duplicated across multiple AZs. When we say AZs, we have multiple data centers within a region. And those, uh, the data is duplicated. It is like duplicated across AZs, and that is why it gives very high availability. So here, the durability part, as far as durability part is concerned, you will the chances that you will lose your data, right, or your integrity checks that S3 does is very high. It is like 9, 11 nines, right? So that's a very high number. It's very close to 100%. So it says that if you store 10 million objects, okay, in S3, you might just lose one object every 10,000 years. I mean, this is almost like saying that you would never lose an object. That's what I would infer from this. And as far as the availability part is concerned, it is again 99.99% available. So it is always available kind of service. So that is the you can read and write your objects from this. And like I told you, so S3 is a regional resource, and then it is the data is redundantly stored or basically copied across data fields. So that is why you get this durability number, right? This durability number comes from this part. See, in S3 there is there is an option to actually do cross region replication as well. So that is also possible. So, but we'll cover that in the other video. But for now, I'm just giving you the heads up that it is possible, though it's an regional resource. But then I can copy my data from one region to another region. That is also possible. But it is not that I will move the whole S3 there. No, I will just move the data to the other region. So that's the thing. So once you understand this part, so this would be a good starting point for us to actually get going with S3. And what are the common use cases? You can host a website from S3. This is a very common use case. You can store media, media files like images, videos for data lakes and analytics. This is perfect actually because it has very huge data, right? And then there are other services like Blue Athena, your EMR, etc. Elastic Map Reduce, which is your Hadoop. So we all use the data S3. And for the log storage, this is perfect actually. So whenever you get the app logs, you might push it to CloudWatch, and then from CloudWatch you can store it in the S3 as an archival log. And then there are a lot of use cases like ALB logs, etc. You can push it to the S3 for a future reference, so that you don't have to pay too much of money because S3 is cheaper when you compare it with EFS or the EBS. So that is also one. And when I told you about a cross-region replication, so this is the CRR, cross-region replication. So that is why we have the disaster recovery option as well. If the whole region goes down, obviously because you are doing cross-region replication, that is an option. It is not by default. You can enable it. So there is a cross-region replication option which is available in. You can do the versioning of your data. Okay, so that is also one option. Then you have the option of life cycle. So we'll cover the life cycle separately. And then again, it can be used for machine learning, as we know, right? When we consider data sets, etc., for machine learning, it will be a very huge data set. When we have very huge, big data sets or a very big files which are concerned, then your simple choice is S3. And S3 is actually connected to many other, uh, basically as an event source. So if there is any event which occurs in S3, then you can call something like a Lambda, etc. So this is like simple, scalable, secure, durable object storage for the cloud. Now we'll just have a look at the S3 in the AWS console to understand how does it look. If you go to AWS and if you just type S3, so it will take you to this screen. Okay, so here you will find something called as general purpose bucket. And this is something that we would be interested in. See, there are directory buckets, table buckets, and vector buckets. These are new additions which uh, AWS has added recently. Earlier it was only general purpose bucket. We'll stick to general purpose bucket, and that is what we will be using most of the time. So in general purpose bucket, okay. So you have this option of first you can create this bucket, and then when you create the bucket, you have this option like okay, general purpose bucket. You provide the global namespace. The thing is, when you provide this bucket name, it should be unique across. It should be unique global. Should be unique global. And if you go by this, then basically see there is the bucket name would be there. Again, it will be adding your own regional account names. In this way, it becomes. If you don't want this particular part, right, then you can go with the global names. That's the advantage. So if you want account specific unique bucket, then you can go with this. And if you want globally uh, basically unique bucket, then you go with this. Then you have this option of object ownership. Then if you want to block public access basically. See, basically S3 has by default it blocks all the public. And if you want to enable it, it will give this warning. You have to acknowledge and all those stuff. And then how do you want to enable it? What level you want to enable it? Again, this is a separate section. We'll take it up when we especially do the static website hosting. For now, just understand that you can enable or disable public access. By default, it is disabled. Public access is disabled, and we have the option of bucket versioning. Say suppose same file, if I'm enabling versioning, if I'm uploading the same file, it will get uploaded with the new version. So that's the advantage. You have option of encryption. So basically, when you store in S3, so it will be stored in the encrypted form. So basically, encrypted uh, at store basically. So that's the advantage. Even if your data is hacked, right, it would be encrypted. So there is very less chance that someone can decrypt it and use your data. So that's the advantage of your encryption at store. And you can just create this one. Once you create this bucket, you have this option. You can store any kind of data. Like in this case, I have just stored images. You can just store any kind of images, any kind of files that you want to be stored. And if you just an upload and just showing it from console, you can generally people use SDK. Like it would be part of your code that someone would be uploading some kind of files, etc. Say like there is a use case, right? That I am saving users profile. So in users profile, I am asking user to upload its passport size photo or something, and then plus all the other details. So what will happen? The other details, etc., will go in your DynamoDB. Say just take an example or your RDS database, and then your image will be stored in your S3, and the key of the S3 will be stored in your database in a database column as a reference. So next time, say suppose if I want to retrieve that data, then what will happen? I will actually get the key, and then if I want to see that image, so I'll just get the key, and then there will be an access that I'll make to this S3. So that's how you can use it. And like I told you, because it's an object storage, we are going to use HTTP calls or REST API. So this is the basic introduction or the just a brief idea about what S3 is. Thank you so much. Have a good day.